Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of Your Money, Your Purpose, the podcast that goes into financial concepts, but then also takes into consideration the behavioral side and emotional side of money decisions and helping align those two things. So, your financial outlook, your financial strategies with your purpose, your emotions, and your behaviors when it comes to handling your money. I'm Brian Eckert, financial advisor with Terra Wealth, and I'm here with my colleague and co-host Billy Zerillo. And Billy, what we're talking about today is financial health. And what does that mean? What does it mean to be financially healthy? And this takes into a lot of different aspects of somebody's, financial world. So would you start us off by talking a little bit about, what makes up financial health and some of the different things that we're gonna be discussing today?
Yeah, I love this topic. I love talking about financial health. It's so much more interesting about talking about health rather than all the other stuff, right? All the traditional way of financial planning, right? Talking about all the stuff that you think about is boring. That's not what we want to talk about here today. We want to talk about financial health. And so the best way to describe what financial health is by using an analogy. And like I said in our first episode, you're going to get to know a little bit more about our personalities. I love to use analogies because it's the easiest way to understand something. So if you think about financial health like your own physical health, right? So you go to the doctor's office, right? Brian walks into the doctor's office and he's like, "Hey doc, I'm here to see you." And the doctor's not going to immediately be like, "Well, Brian, I need you to go get an MRI. I need you to go get I need you to go get this blood work done, this test done, this test done." And Brian's like, "Doc, I'm just coming in here just for a routine, checkup. Like, what's going on? Like, why do I need all these exams and stuff like that? I haven't even told you anything yet, right?" And so the doctor's not going to do that, right? The doctor's going to be like, "Hey, Brian, let's sit down. What's going on? Anything new? Anything's changed? Let's take your blood pressure. Let's just get some basic vital signs," right? And those vital signs it's going to tell the doctor a lot of things, right? It's going to tell them how healthy you are on a baseline, right? Are there more tests that they need to do in order to figure out what's going on? Maybe to diagnose better, maybe to prescribe better medication or better treatments or whatever it might be. And so if you're walking into your doctor's office and they're doing that for you, why aren't we as financial advisors doing the exact same thing for clients when they walk in? Why aren't we looking to improve their financial health? And one of the things that we're going to share with you today are the financial vital signs that we want to look at. So when we're talking about, what does it mean to be financially healthy are all areas of your financial life, like not just your investments, right? Not just the products that you have in place already, but are we spending our income wisely? Are we saving enough money? Do we have too much money allocated towards debt? Where are the areas that we're unhealthy in our finances? Ask questions why that's the case, but then begin to say, okay, diagnose that and say, what are the things that we need to do to improve that area of our financial health? So I know that was a long-winded answer, Brian. How did I do?
You did great. And I love the analogy of going to the doctor's office because unfortunately, and I hope that nobody listening today has had this experience, but I know people have shared with me they've walked into an advisor's office and the first thing they want to see all of their assets. And then they say, well, I can get you a better rate of return over here and over here. And maybe that's not the client's biggest concern. Their biggest concern is, you mentioned on the last episode about security. and about that, solid foundation of an emergency fund. And that's what they're most concerned with. And if somebody is pushing them to do something that makes them uncomfortable, that's not the right advisor for them. And I would say, if I walked into the doctor's office and he said, Brian, you need to go get an MRI, this and this and this and this, that's not the right doctor for me. So, and I'd walk out, and you should too. So, I love, and we're gonna share some examples of what it means to be financially healthy. And really, it's raising people's awareness in these areas of their life. It's not that we're going to say to somebody, you're wrong, or this is right and this is wrong and you need to do this. It's raising people's awareness and having them make sure that the decisions they're making are how they want to live, aligned with their values and their purpose. So, Billy, I will hand it back to you.
Yeah. So, you kind of talked about something that was, and we've been hitting back and forth about, is that, that it's beyond that financial planning and financial advice should be beyond just the numbers, right? It's the number, like we say all the time, the numbers are very important. We're not negating that fact that those numbers are important. The money in that account is very important. We understand that, but there's so much more nuance to your financial life that meets the eye, and financial health is one of those things. And so, going back to that story that I shared, it didn't matter that she had a savings, and we're going to get into this, and it'll make more sense here in a second. But it didn't matter that she had a 30% savings rate. She didn't feel like she was secure enough in her finances, even though I don't know about you, Brian, but that's a really healthy savings rate, to be saving 30% of your income towards any one goal. But she didn't feel like she was secure enough, right?
Yeah. And Billy, if I may, so, and it's not necessarily that needs to increase to make her feel more secure. She just needs to talk through, or I'm saying this client needs to talk through, what would make them feel secure. And once they clarify that, they find out that, a savings rate of 30 is more than what makes me feel secure. I just wanted to do more in this area because I didn't define or clarify what would make me feel secure. So it's really about raising awareness in these areas too, because 30% savings rate is really, really healthy. I mean, that's a really high savings rate. But it's raising awareness. It's not just improving the numbers or lowering numbers in some area. It's raising awareness and aligning what is going to serve that client.
Yeah. That kind of leads us into a really good segue into our next topic, talking about the behavioral aspects. So exploring the emotional aspects of financial health, right? Like we were just talking about that example, saving 30% of your income is an amazing goal, but it's not it's still, in my mind, it's not healthy, because yes, the number of 30% is a healthy number, but when you dive into it, right, just like a doctor would dive into that number and say, okay, I see this number, that's kind of, even though it's a good number, it's kind of like an outlier, and we need to explore why this number is this way. And then we dive into that 30%. We see all of it's going towards retirement. So she had, no other savings. And so that's why she didn't feel secure, because maybe she didn't have an emergency fund set up. Maybe she didn't have, other funds that she needed to save. So maybe we redirect her savings into a different aspect. Maybe and obviously, whoever is your advisor that you're talking with, make sure that you're having conversations with them about your specific situation. But in this case, maybe it's a situation where you're redirecting your savings, or maybe even lowering your savings, because maybe she's, we'll talk about some of these numbers, but you said bringing awareness. That's a lot of what financial health is about, is bringing awareness, to where you spend your money, right? one of the things that I love to talk about is like how I hate the word budget. Because when you think of budget, Brian, when I say you need to budget, what's your initial reaction when I'm telling you you need to budget your money?
Well, most people's initial reaction is they're like that is like the bane of their existence. They don't want to have to be limited. Budgeting deprives me. I feel like I'm in deprivation. I'm depriving myself of things that I want or things that I enjoy. And what I share is there's no shame, there's no blame, there's awareness. And we just have to ask questions like, is spending money in this area giving you fulfillment and joy in your life and moving it in the direction that you want to go? And if you say yes, well, we're just going to say, okay, that's what gives you fulfillment. But if you think about it and you say, no, that's not really giving me fulfillment, well, then stop spending $600 on a gadget that doesn't give you fulfillment. So it's, again, raising that awareness. But most people, see, when you say budget to me, Billy, I get excited.
I know, because you're a nerd. I get it.
but I like framing that is in your personal cash flow. Know where your money is going and raising awareness. It's not about deprivation, and it's not about blaming or shaming or you feeling guilty about how you've spent in the past. It's just understanding where things are going so you can make the best decisions, and you actually change your actions when you raise your awareness and make sure that different things are aligned with your purpose and your values. So most people think of budgeting as depriving themselves, and it's difficult, and it's this. And Billy, what I see in our clients is as they raise their awareness and as they take into, or I won't even say take into consideration in every decision, but when they are clarifying and aligning their personas and their values and things, the decisions happen automatically because they know how they're making the decision. And it doesn't become a deprivation, it becomes exciting. I'm going to spend money here because it gives me fulfillment and purpose. And I'm not going to spend money here because you know what? Although that's a gadget that I like, it doesn't give me fulfillment and purpose. And so anyway, I do get excited when you say budget, Billy.
Well, like I said, you're a nerd, and that fits right in line. But what I was thinking about while you're talking about awareness, right? That there's no shame, there's no blame, there's only awareness. And again, I said it in the first episode. I talk a lot of analogies when it comes to finance because I feel like it's an easy way to understand things. And so when I think about awareness brings choice, right? We now have the ability to make a decision. And I think about the movie, it just escaped me. The Matrix, right? I might be dating myself, that's fine in that aspect. But you think about in the movie, there's a character named Morpheus, and he gives Neo a decision to make, right? He said, you can either go back and live the life that you were living, oblivious, and just continue living, or you can have awareness and you can understand what's going on in this world. And that's what financial health does, or assessing your financial health, is it gives us a window into the decision-making process. And all we're asking is, why are we making that decision? Is that decision that you're making in full alignment with who you are and where you want to go and who you want to become? If you say yes to all three of those things, Brian and I are going to be like, go spend that money. Like, we're going to be like, go do it. But if it's not, we're going to push back on you because it doesn't fit the category of it doesn't meet those criteria, right? Wouldn't you agree on that?
Absolutely, and I would fall short of saying we say go spend that money. We do help people understand, especially if it's a big purchase, just what's the consequence of that. And one of the things that I think Billy and I are very much aligned on in how our approach is if something is important, if family time is important, if creating experiences and memories is important, that is going to be an expense that may be a major expense earlier in life that is going to take away from money for retirement. we're not going to say, well, don't do that because you need to save for your retirement. You do need to save for your retirement. You also need to create those memories and experiences with your kids. So we're just going to help at, what we do is we ask questions to just, really, when Billy says push back, I don't want that to sound like a negative. It's not. We just are asking questions for you to think about things maybe from in a different way or a different perspective. And what that does is it helps clarify. And this is again like the beautiful, exciting part is, say it is a $10,000 family vacation that you're going to create this huge experience for your kids over a 2-month experience or something like that. You can go into that and feel absolutely wonderful about spending the money and not feel guilty at all about not saving for your retirement, because it's aligned with your values, your purpose, and you have a plan in all these other areas. So it's again, it's evaluating that financial health, raising awareness, and just understanding how one choice impacts another area. And the financial monitoring tool that we're going to introduce today that we utilize, is going to show those things. When you pull from one, it may have an effect on another one. That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. So let's do that. Let's just pull it right up. Let's take a look at when we're talking about financial health. This is the tool that we use, right? This might not be the tool that your advisor uses, and that's fine, right? Whatever they use to help, clarify a situation for you, I'm sure it's great, but this is what we use as far as how we're going to help somebody understand how financially healthy they are. And just like I was saying, just like a doctor uses vital signs in the sense of like your heart rate, maybe it's your blood pressure, maybe it's your respiratory rate, or, I don't know all the different terms. My wife's a nurse. I should know a lot of these, but I don't. But really looking at financial health from, again, I don't like to use the holistic term, but looking at it from a 360 degree viewpoint. So, we're not going to get into a lot of these financial vital signs today, but Brian talked about like cash flow. And like we talk about, you'll hear us talk about like savings rate, your burn rate, your debt rate, right? Those are all things that, what I love about financial health, Brian, one of the things that really gets me kind of like jazzed up about it is a lot of this, like especially the savings rate, burn rate, debt rate. Those are a lot of things that you can control. There's a lot in this world. I don't know if anybody realizes this, right? There's a lot in this world that we don't have control over. We don't have control over the economy. We don't have control over, a lot of things in this world. Like, there's, I don't know how many, what was there, 8 billion people on this planet now. Everybody has their own way of doing things and wants it to be done their way. And so what I'm trying to say is that when it comes to financial health, we need to figure out the things that we can control. Your savings rate, you can control. The amount of money, your burn rate is the amount of money that you spend, the percentage of income that you spend on everyday items unrelated to your debt. Then your debt rate, right? By looking at those 3 areas, these are some actionable steps that you can take today and say, look at those areas and see how much of your money is going to those 3 buckets. The tax rate, which is TR, again, that's not something that you're going to have a ton of control over. The 3 boxes that I mentioned are really the 3 main areas that we're going to look at. So, but those are the things that we can control. When I say that, Brian, when you can have control over that, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So many times, Billy, people think that finance is, out of their control, or they feel like they have to do something because they were either taught it or it's the way they've always done it. And until they see things differently, and that's why I love this tool, Elements is what it's called, is when we show somebody this and we show them, this is your rate here, your savings rate or burn rate or debt rate. And then we can have the conversation about how do you improve these. So the numbers show us where things are, but then the discussion is how do we improve on these health, financial health indicators. And so that's why I think it's so important. And things that you mentioned, tax rate, and there's not a lot that we can do with that, but we can also be strategic,
Yes.
especially if we're doing like Roth conversions, and which is a taxable event. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I have a client right now that I'm talking about doing a Roth conversion with a significant amount of money, and they'll be taxed now, but it's not going to throw them into the next tax bracket, which is important to understand those things. But somebody can't say, well, I make this amount of money and I want to pay this in taxes instead of this. No, the government tells us what we got to pay in taxes, but we can be strategic about how we're handling that aspect of finances for somebody. But yeah, those three right there in the middle, the savings rate, burn rate, and debt rate. I don't want to say the other elements aren't as important, but these are the ones that I think can have somebody's personal choices can have the most effect on making these go up or down.
Yeah, because we talk about it, the number one asset in somebody's life is their income and their ability to manage it, or their ability to how they use it, right? And by pulling on those three levers, we can increase the bottom row, which we will probably get into, later down the road. But those are really the assets, right? Those are the things that you own that eventually are going to replace your income in retirement. Because that, when you're not working, you're not working at your place of employment, you got to replace your income if you want to retire. So your assets is what's going to do that. But by keeping those numbers in a healthy range, right, by monitoring those numbers, in theory, we should be increasing our overall net worth. And that's what we want people to focus on, is what are the things that I can control in my own financial health. Like if you think about your own personal health, you can control what you eat. You can control, how much, sleep you get. You can, for the most part, you have kids and stuff like that. Maybe it's a little bit harder, but you can control if you go to the gym or walk outside or be in nature, right? Those are the things that you can control that will eventually control the number on the scale, right? And so when we're talking about that's why financial health is so important to understand, that it's not always thinking about the number on the account, right? What are the things that I can do to control those numbers?
Yeah, and Billy, you said this about savings rate earlier. Like, somebody had a 30% savings rate, but they felt like they weren't secure in their finances because it was all going towards, towards retirement, and they didn't have an emergency fund, which is, where it gives people, a really great sense of security when their liquid term is significant enough that, if something happens, they know they're going to be okay. And what's interesting is as we monitor somebody's financial health through this tool, and when we meet with them, the discussions are so much richer, and no pun intended. We just have richer discussions with them about their goals and how they're saving and things like that. And I'm thinking of a client that I have that they have a short-term goal, and they're like, we just don't see it happening, for 2 or 3 years. And by looking at their financial health and then looking at their numbers, knowing their emotional, their emotional approach to this particular goal, we just rearranged some of how they were saving money. And instead of 3 years from now, they're going to accomplish that goal in like 10 and a half months.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have all of this information.
Yeah.
So that's where the financial health is, and where we're like the financial doctor as the advisor using these tools.
Yeah. One more example. I love, probably savings rates. One of my favorite boxes. It's I call it the dreaming box, because the money that you're putting into that box is essentially where you're going to be building your dreams, right? And so, when I meet with somebody, and a healthy savings rate for somebody, right? We talk about the baseline health score, right? Doesn't mean that has to be for everybody. It just means that this is typically a good score when it comes to savings rate. Between 15 and 20% of your income should be going to any one savings goal, right? It could be retirement, could be whatever, right? But at least you're saving that percentage of your income. Well, they weren't anywhere close to that. They were like 2 or 3%. And they felt terrible, right? They felt dejected. They're like, how am I ever going to do this, Billy? Like, I'm never going to get to that goal. And I said, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I said, what happens? You're at 3% today. What happens if we just raise it 1% today? We go from 3% and we go to 4%. And then in another 6 months, we go from 4% to 6%. And then we keep moving up. And before you know it, in a couple of months, maybe a couple of years, you're probably at that 15 to 20%. And you're going to look and be like, how did we get here? And it was because we took little baby steps, right, to get to that goal. And again, that's implementing the technical side of things. We know we need to get to 15 to 20% of our income, but then also the behavioral side of things. How do we make it manageable, right? How do we get there in a manageable way that everybody can agree on? So again, that is an actionable step that you guys can take today. We were going to give a couple. That's one. Whatever your savings rate is today, just up it by 1%. 1% in the grand scheme of things, you're not going to feel it. And just keep working at that goal until you're eventually, saving at a good, healthy savings rate.
And I would add to that, Billy, the 1%, if that's comfortable, and then a month from now, do another 1%. If you're like, 1% really did kind of make things really tight, wait 3 months, and on the quarter, do another 1%. But it is important that I like how you said it. That's the dream category. That's what future dreams are built on. And no matter where it is, whether it's in retirement, emergency fund, other short-term goals, you're just putting that money away. You're not spending it today. And that's really important to give people a sense of security and confidence going forward.
Yeah, 100%. So we hope that you enjoyed today's show, talking a little bit more about financial health. If this is a topic that really interests you, let us know. We would love to dive more into this, maybe bring on a special guest and talk about financial health. But what I want you to do today is I want you to think about, what does financial health mean to you? And how can you actively find out how healthy you are, right? Obviously, we have our way. There's multiple ways to find out. This is just the way that we do it. Obviously, if you'd like to have that conversation, we'd love to have that conversation with you. But hopefully this just sparks the idea today that you don't have to just think about money one way, right? There are multiple ways to improve your finances. This just happens to be the way that we use it. So before we jump off here today, Brian, anything you'd like to add before we get out of here?
I love your call to action. Find a way to look at your financial health. I just want to remind everybody, no shame, no blame. Don't beat yourself up because of decisions you made in the past. This is awareness so you can make better choices in the future.
Yep. We can't fix the past, but we can fix the future. So hopefully that gives you everybody a little bit of confidence today. So go out there, take those action steps today, so you can start improving your financial health, and make sure that you set your notifications, that you like this, you share this comment, and we'll look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks for another episode of Your Money, Your Purpose. So enjoy your time, and we'll see you